Welcome to another episode of Life and Whiskey. As always, I am Jordan, and we have done it, folks. We've finally done it. We finally found a bottle of Wyoming whiskey that I am not super impressed with. Okay, background story. A couple of weeks ago, a buddy of mine from Oregon came out to Montana, and I was like, "Hey, you can't be 3 hours away from me and have me not hang out with you." So drove up to Montana, hung out with him for like 4 days. We were chasing antelope out on the prairie. A lot of fun. Very few antelope, which was kind of a bummer. Tons of grouse by the tens of thousands. Public land, private land, you name it, they were everywhere. Coyotes were absolutely everywhere. The rut was just starting to kick off. And so, man, we saw some absolute bruisers, and it was a little sketchy driving back in the dark every night. But I told him, I was like, hey, I'm going to bring a bunch of bottles of stuff because it's not that often that we get to hang out, nor is it that often that he gets to try any of my amazing collection of whiskeys, right? And he drinks a fair number of whiskeys that, he's had experiences with a fair number himself, and he always keeps maybe like 10 bottles on hand or something like that. Fan of whiskey, fan of cigars. He and I always have a great time hanging out. Did manage to put a tag on when I was there. We did get he managed to put his tag on a doe antelope, and then the next day he got another one. Although I wasn't there for that one, but I did help him pack out an antelope, and so I said, "Hey, let me bring a bunch of different bottles," which I did. And I brought some scotches. I wanted to bring him things that I knew he'd probably never had a chance to try at any other point. And so I brought those things. He was semi unimpressed with those. He also brought me another bottle of this Freeland Spirits out of um, Portland. And I'd already gotten a bottle, and unfortunately, I didn't tell him that. So he brought me another one, but like I've said in previous videos, you put a naked lady on a glass bottle, I'm paying attention, and now I got a pair of them, and well, sometimes two naked ladies is better than one, depending on your situation. But neither here nor there. I said, hey, I'm going to pick up a bottle of this Wyoming whiskey, and I think I brought the Integrity with me as far as a bourbon, and of course the Integrity's fantastic, and so we really enjoyed this. Now this product is it's a limited edition. The backstory on this, supposedly, I don't know how true it is, and I forget the names of the people involved, but when they opened the distillery, they brought the former head distiller for Maker's Mark out of retirement, and he designed and built the still at the Wyoming Whiskey Distillery over the mountain over in Kirby. And supposedly they told him like, hey, we want to do a rye, and he's like, yeah, we don't do rye, we make bourbon. And so they told him to make a rye, and he ended up making like a high-rye bourbon, but didn't tell anybody about it or something to that effect. And then when they went to release their rye, it didn't meet the requirements of rye, and it still ended up being a bourbon. And so they ended up kind of bastardizing things, mixing a bunch of stuff together, I do believe, and then trying to market it and sell it. And I've held off for years and years and years on this product because I was not super excited about it. This is, with the exception of the 10th anniversary bottle, this is the most expensive bottle of Wyoming whiskey I have, which is probably the main reason why I didn't want to buy it. Is it's expensive for a bastardized product or something that isn't very popular or well known, right? So took a chance on it. I spent $68.79 here locally. Sorry, Second most. So the 10th anniversary edition and the single barrel, which I paid $82. Those are the two most expensive bottles. Everything else has been in the 60s and 50s. This is still in the 60s, but it's the upper 60s. So it's the third most expensive bottle I got. And I paid $68.79 here locally. And I'm going to read, I never do this, but I'm going to read this to you on the back here, just so everybody knows what we're in for here. It's in horseman terms, horseman, the outrider stands apart, securing the herd's flank, whether it's cattle or pricey thoroughbreds that he prevents from straying. Our outrider whiskey also stands apart, distinct and different. It's not a bourbon. It's not a true rye. It is a hard to brand but easy to drink blend of stray batches of Wyoming whiskey. The result is a truly singular spirit that's great for sipping or making cocktails on the ranch, at the track, or wherever you please. I thought I read on here somewhere, but it doesn't say. Boy, I thought it said it somewhere on there. Okay, so I read all that, only for you to know it's not a bourbon, it's not a rye, it's not even really, I guess technically it's a burr rye because it is a blend of those things. So basically, they took all the outlying barrels that didn't make the cut for a bunch of other stuff, mixed it with that story that I told you, the supposed rye barrels that weren't really rye. They were a high-rye bourbon, mixed them together, and they ended up with this. So they got a bunch of things that didn't quite make the cut, and they're like, hey, let's throw it in a bottle and let's sell it for expensive stuff. And, call it a limited edition so we can crank up the price on it. And, I would say I fell for the marketing, but that's not true. I just finally broke down and bought it. I didn't really, really want it, but I was like, hey, I want to bring something to Antelope Camp that is something new, and you haven't had it, and I haven't had it, and blah, blah, blah. And so I broke down and bought it. So it's coming in at 100 proof, so 50% ABV. Now that I've ripped on it enough, let's see what it actually comes out to be here. In the nose, it has a slight perfumey floral nose to it with a little bit of a chemical smell on the back end of it. If I dig in there deep, I can get some bourbon notes where I can get kind of a floral bourbony nose. There's not a whole lot going on in there. The more I sit here and smell it, the more it's coming around to a bourbon nose profile. It's really burning my nostrils though. Like the ethanol is very sharp in this. It's coming. It's very forward. No age statement on this, I don't think. And like I said, they married a bunch of different things together. So I don't know. Going in on the taste, number one. I'm not gonna lie. This is the best that this bottle has ever tasted to me, and I am 4 whiskeys deep at this point. So it's coming on the heels of all those other whiskeys. And I think also having it open up a little bit, it tastes a bit better. It is sweet up front. It's caramel, a little bit of like spearmint almost in there. You get some oak in there. The oak's a little bit bitey, the oak is coming on the back of the proof. You get that brown sugar in there. There's a little bit of the rye notes in there, and I will say this. When I say that this is the best this bottle has tasted, it's the most well-rounded or most cohesive flavor profile that this bottle has presented. All my other tastings, and the reason why I ragged on it was like bourbon up front, and then there was like a small gap, and then it was like rye in the middle, rye whiskey in the middle, and then on the finish, it had this huge bite, huge proof, not very enjoyable finish to it. So it was a segmented whiskey, and I didn't really like the bitiness of the finish on it. This experience, it was more smooth and cohesive and sweet. and the finish still had that bite, but it was turned down a little bit more than what it had been in all the prior tastings that I've had. And I mean, I know that's not a lot of whiskey, but it was enough out of there that like I've probably tried this 5 times. And each time it was the same up until now. So there's a benefit to that. Maybe sitting out and letting it open up a little bit helped. I don't know. I'm going to go back into this. I'll walk you through the flavor profile instead of just yammering on, but I wanted to put that in there that this is so far the best that this bottle has tasted. Still not blowing my skirt up, but better than it was by a long shot. The nose is definitely becoming more caramel, more bourbon-esque, and a little bit denser than it had been before. I get a little bit of the rye notes, like a little bit of eucalyptus, a little bit of mint in the nose. So it's a little bit simple up front, takes a minute for it to develop, and then it hits a sweet brown sugar, a little bit floral. Then it kicks in with rye and rye spice, a little bit of rye graininess. But then that burn picks up 3/4 of the way through the mid palate and into the finish. And it's just a burn, a sharp oakiness, almost a tannic bitterness, mixed with a little bit of sweet, a mentholy mint. It's a confused whiskey. That's what it is. It's a confused whiskey that drinks hot. It has a hot finish to it, and that's the impression that it leaves you with. Is just this hot ethanol bite mixed with those other harsh notes like the menthol and the oak. Um, so the finish on it is not my favorite, and it really goes from like bourbon sweet, smooth, good, creamy to like rye, like oh this is an interesting, nice kind of a rye to just like kick you in the face. And on that second sip, once again, it was a little bit more segmented than the first sip, and maybe because I was focusing more on trying to make the point than talking my way through the flavor profile, but like it was bourbon, and then there was a little bit of a pause, and then it was rye, and then a finish that I didn't particularly care for. But it's coming around. But out of all of the Wyoming whiskeys I have had, and I've had a lot, just for reference, I have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. I have 11 different Wyoming whiskeys, and this one by far is the first one that I have anything bad to say about. So I will say this. It is coming around. It's starting to be okay, but as the third most expensive bottle in the lineup, I would skip this all day, every day, and I would go for anything in the national parks lineup. I would go for any of the, what do they call them, private stocks, any of the private stock, the picked barrels. Any of those are absolutely outstanding, and at cask strengths nonetheless. I would skip that because for $63, I think I've paid, what's the cheapest one I've had? $50 out of Casper at the liquor shed. I paid $50 for 2 different private selects there. I would take that over $68 any day for this thing, just because it's a confused whiskey. It doesn't know what it wants to be. It's not bad. I'm not ragging on it as being like a terrible whiskey. It's just a confused whiskey. It doesn't know what it wants to be, and it's not completely cohesive. I don't know if more time in a marrying barrel would help, or I don't know what would help that. But it needs some help, a little bit. I don't know what, but something. I would put it back into a barrel and marry it. I'd mix it, barrel it, and put another year on it and see what it did if I was running the show. That's what I'd do with that. But chances are you might not even be able to find this because it was a limited release, limited edition, and they were just trying to get rid of stuff. You might not be able to find it. And if that's the case, good on you. You don't want it, in my opinion. Not for almost $70. But there you go. That is my review of the Wyoming Whiskey Outrider. It says American straight whiskey. So an American whiskey means that it doesn't make the qualifications for a rye. It doesn't make the qualifications for a bourbon. And if you look at the American whiskey category, almost anything goes. So there you go. That's what this is. Like I said, I paid $68, 68.79 here locally. Take from that what you will. Not a terrible whiskey. I've had a lot worse whiskeys, but it's not up to snuff with the Wyoming whiskey branding usual by any means. So there you go. Drop in the comments down below what your experience with the Wyoming Whiskey Outrider is, if you have any, what you can find it for in your area, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this bottle in another couple of sips, we get down to here, maybe this will be the most amazing bottle I have. If that's the case, I will come back, I will re-review this, and I'll say, hey, maybe all you need to do is dump out half of it into another container, let it air out, let it open up, and you have an amazing whiskey. I don't know. We will find out. But somehow I feel like that's not quite the case. I feel like if I were to take some of this charcoal and stick it in there, maybe that, oh man, that was almost a disaster. Maybe that would make this something amazing. But for now, it's going to be a pass for me, and I think it might be a pass for you too. But drop in the comments down below. Let me know if I'm wrong. I'd love to hear what you have to say. Thanks for watching. This video is a little bit long because I've been rambling, but I was going to do these other two whiskeys, but I think we have had enough for today. We'll catch you in the next video. Thanks for watching.